the quiet moments of existence, transformations unfold without a sound. There were no flashes of light, no intense moments, and no shattering of glass. Just a subtle change in the atmosphere, a gaze lingering for an extra heartbeat, a moment of uncertainty during the meal. And so it began for me, not through a choice, but through an instant I had yet to realize would forever shape my existence. He made his entrance in the late afternoon, pulling along a dusty suitcase and a well-loved leather backpack. The sound of the wheels grinding against the stones reached my ears before his figure came into view. He stood before me, more imposing than I recalled, with a wider frame, hair that cascaded a bit longer, and eyes that held a serene depth. His smile held a bittersweet quality, reminiscent of those who find themselves back in a place that no longer feels like home, yet are drawn to it despite the distance that has grown between them. My husband was the first to welcome him, wrapping him in a quick, firm hug that carried the familiar strength men of his generation often possess. I lingered in the background, gripping a dish towel tightly, acutely conscious of how it adhered to my moist palms. He glanced my way, and for a fleeting moment, his gaze held mine, not from acknowledgement or fondness, but from evaluation, like a cherished tale from his childhood, one that stirs a sense of nostalgia and beckons him to explore its pages once more. "It has been some time," I remarked. My voice revealed no secrets. Years of experience had honed that ability to a fine point. "It has," he said, setting the suitcase down against the wall. "It seems like you remain quite the same." That was far from the truth, naturally. I had transformed in areas where makeup couldn't touch, in the gentle arch of my back, shaped by countless hours spent at a desk, in the cadence of my reflections, in the moments of silence I cherished. Yet, I wore a smile, as though his words were wrapped in kindness. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we gathered around the long oak table in the kitchen, the warm breeze carrying the fragrant whispers of late summer through the open windows. My husband uncorked the bottle and let the rich red liquid flow into the glass. The dialogue flowed easily, weaving through topics of work, cities, new clients, and renovations. I allowed the men to share their tales. I absorbed every word, as I always did, acknowledging with nods at the appropriate times, chuckling when the moment called for it. My role felt like a well-worn tale, one I could step into effortlessly, as if it had always been a part of me. Yet, under the table, my bare foot gently grazed against his heel. It was just a fleeting moment, an error, a spark of light. I pulled it back right away, but not before our gazes locked. He cast his gaze in my direction, not with urgency, not with regret. Yet there was a quietness that left me feeling uneasy, not blaming, unwelcoming, simply existing. Here we are. I turned my gaze elsewhere. After dinner, I lingered to tidy up, rinsing the plates in the sink as my husband guided him to the guest room. Their voices drifted from upstairs, softened by the walls, shaped by the passage of time and the dance of everyday manners. I wandered with purpose, my fingertips tracing the smooth contours of the ceramic plates, my image warping gently in the glimmer of the faucet's surface. Later, in the solitude of my bedroom, I pulled open the drawer that held the things I never donned, items I had previously acquired for my own enjoyment. Silk, lace, fabrics that conveyed tales instead of word. I found myself drawn to them in this moment, though I couldn't quite understand why. That night, I was certain of one thing. Cotton was not my choice of fabric. I picked up a bodysuit that had been untouched for more than a year. Deep emerald, adorned with delicate lace that climbed the sides and twisted like ivy across the skin. I tucked it away under my robe. It would remain hidden from view. Not that one. He is not my husband. Yet I would sense it. As I switched off the light and settled into bed, it struck me that my husband and I hadn't exchanged a word since we tucked ourselves in. His breathing was steady, his back turned to me as always, creating a silent barrier between us. I lay there, gazing at the ceiling, hoping that slumber would eventually embrace me. Yet my skin, beneath the lace, beneath the sheets, held onto memories too vividly. The dawn of a new day arrived without any clash, no unusual comments. The heartbeat of the home persisted in its familiar cadence. Once upon a time, the day began with the aroma of breakfast wafting through the air, followed by the clatter of emails waiting to be addressed, and the never-ending cycle of laundry that awaited its turn. My husband set off for work. The stillness settled in, weaving through the spaces like a gentle mist. He wandered into the kitchen late at night, his feet bare against the cool floor, hair still glistening from the shower's embrace. I poured the coffee, my gaze deliberately avoiding his shoulders. He stood in the doorway, observing me intently. "Everything seems just as it always has," he murmured, lost in thought. "However, it's not entirely so. Time has a way of doing that," I responded. My voice remained steady, yet a shiver ran down my spine. He was weaving a narrative that went beyond mere furniture and paint. We left it at that. Today unfolded with the sun shining down as I ventured outside, tending to the unruly bushes that had taken over near the back fence. My thoughts kept circling back to that dinner, to the quiet tension beneath the table, to the bodysuit still clinging to my form under a sundress now speckled with dirt. I had never experienced the feeling of being in the spotlight. That's not quite the way. It takes dedication and perseverance, and definitely not by someone who has no business witnessing me. Once more I found myself in the kitchen, creating a meal under the stars. We found ourselves in those familiar spots once again. The house lights danced with a subtle flicker. There seems to be an issue with the wiring. My husband shared a tale about a colleague's dog. Once upon a time, there was something seemingly insignificant. Once upon a time, in a world filled with wonders, there existed a tale that stretched across the ages, weaving together the lives of countless characters and their extraordinary adventures. Each chapter unfolded like a tapestry, rich with detail and emotion, inviting listeners to immerse themselves in the vivid landscapes and intricate plots. As the narrative flowed, it captured the essence of human experience, revealing the triumphs and tribulations that define our existence. With every turn of the page, the story deepened, drawing the audience into a realm where imagination knows no bounds, and every moment is a chance to discover something new. With a knowing smile, I chuckled and handed over the salt. And once more, I witnessed the unfolding events. This time, it was intentional. His fingers brushed against mine, gently, as we moved through life. As he extended his hand toward the wine, our fingers brushed against each other, and this time I stayed right where I was. In the blink of an eye, it happened. Yet I sensed it coursing through me, igniting a warmth along my spine. He gazed at me from the edge of his glass, his face a mystery waiting to be unraveled. It felt like a silent challenge, urging me to act as though I was oblivious to the unspoken inquiry. I made my exit early that evening, citing a headache as my reason. My husband murmured a few words, his attention captured by the unfolding news segment on the television. As I ascended the stairs, I took my time, each step feeling burdensome, as though the essence of that touch had embedded itself deep within my very being. In the bathroom, I quietly removed my clothes, activated the flow of water, gazed as the steam danced and cloaked the mirror in a shroud of mystery. As I peeled off the bodysuit, my fingers glided over the fabric, and I carefully set it down in the laundry basket. The skin beneath it held onto the memory of a warmth from a gaze that had never made contact. That night, my sleep was filled with unease. My body curled into itself, filled with a sensation I couldn't quite identify. Not longing, embrace courage, a tale of something far more perilous. Excitement builds, and I felt a deep, unspoken truth within me, one I had yet to voice. This dwelling, this individual, this comeback. Everything would leave its mark on me. The days that followed unfolded at a languid pace, not due to any shift in my daily life, but because a deep fissure had formed within me. In that moment, each movement, each glance, and every shared space pulsed with a deep sense of consciousness. I found myself deeply aware of the moment around me. The sound of his footsteps echoed softly on the stairs, the subtle movement of a body adjusting on a chair, the gentle sound of his coffee cup gliding across the counter. A subtle moment that whispers of routine and comfort. I convinced myself it was all in my head. It was merely a fleeting moment. At the age of 42, I found myself in a place of commitment, with a partner by my side, navigating life with a sense of security and thoughtfulness. I didn't rise with thoughts of what shirt he might choose, nor did I ponder if I would glimpse him observing me from the hallway. Yet my body seemed to have its own narrative, uninterested in the logic I tried to impose. It held on to every memory. His caress, his breath was a whisper of tales untold. His unwavering gaze held steady. Our time together in the same room was always fleeting. A peculiar dance unfolded, not of evasion, but of clarity. As I was making my way out of the kitchen, he would step inside. As I ventured outside to tend to the plants, he quietly entered the study. A piece of my heart felt a sense of ease, believing that the threat would fade away if we simply allowed it to linger in quietude. Yet, quietude does not eliminate peril. It focuses it. On a Thursday, the events unfolded. Just another ordinary day. Nothing to write home about. Once upon a time, the skies were clear and the air was parched. The sky is draped in a blanket of grey clouds, the type of sky that rendered the world seemingly two-dimensional and lifeless. My husband set off for a client meeting in the bustling city. A tale that would hold him captive until the clock struck midnight. It was a familiar occurrence. He had shared a cautionary tale with me a week before. They even encouraged me to indulge in a soothing, lengthy soak. Perhaps uncork a bottle of wine. Experience a film that wouldn't capture his interest. Embrace the evening's embrace. He spoke with a gentle smile that invited you in. And I returned the smile. Enjoy a well-deserved break this evening, as if I possessed that kind of power anymore. As the sun began to set, A serene stillness enveloped the house. In the sunroom, I found myself lost in the pages of a book, a tale that left me lost in its pages. The phrases flowing past me, elusive and untouchable. I had a feeling he was hiding away up there, just out of sight. The soft rhythm of his playlist echoed from the ceiling above me. My mind was wandering. It felt as if the air had shifted, leaving me gasping for the familiar rhythm I once knew. Instead, I found myself wandering into the kitchen. As I started to slice the vegetables for dinner, I found myself preparing a meal I had no intention of enjoying. A little something to keep my hands busy. I swung open the fridge door, sealed it up, prepared the dining area, removed a plate, filled a glass with water, only to let it sit untouched. Suddenly, the sound of his footsteps reached my ears. "Take your time." Once more, he found himself without shoes. He had a certain presence indoors, and whenever he walked in, silence seemed to follow him. Casually leaned against the frame of the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, observing the scene unfold. Initially, I hesitated to turn and meet his gaze. "There's no need for you to vanish whenever I walk into a space," I spoke, my voice softer than I had meant it to be. "I'm not," he said, and I sensed his gaze lingering on me. "You've been quite elusive." With a deliberate motion, I pivoted, the blade firmly gripped in my grasp. Not for protection, but for stability. His expression was neither smug nor teasing. It was a mystery, yet it held a certain allure. "I figured you could use some time to yourself, he added. "Distance isn't the issue when the challenge lies elsewhere," I responded before I had a chance to think it through. And then, in a flash, "Well, we share the same roof. It's destined to evoke." Uneasy? I chose to remain silent. As I gazed at the carrot resting beneath my knife, a world of memories began to unfold. Now gentle and molded by the weight of experiences, he moved in a little nearer. Not in a hurry, not in an exaggerated way, just enough for the atmosphere to shift. The scent of his cologne wafted through the air, whispered, a tale of something woody, uninspiring. Clear and simple, he extended his hand toward a glass, filled it with water from the sink, and took a sip, savoring the moment. I observed the movement of his throat. It really shouldn't have made a difference. It was never meant to be personal. Yet, it truly was. He placed the glass on the table, a quiet moment unfolding in the air. Gazed at me, expressionless. "May I pose a question to you?" he recounted. I nodded, even as a weight settled in my chest. "On that enchanting night upon the veranda, what held you back from stepping away?" As I cast my gaze upon him in that moment, truly observed. And in that moment, I beheld not the child of my partner, not the young lad who had once immersed himself in video games in our living room. Yet a man, a figure loomed in my kitchen, posing a question that had lingered in the air between us for far too long. Simply put, it was not my desire. I shared my thoughts. I didn't say it softly. I presented it plainly, without embellishments or nuances. I simply shared the reality with him, because everything else seemed untrue. He remained still. Yet there was a shift in the expression on his face, a whisper of life, a gentle warmth in his gaze. A silent tension wrapped around the moment, creating an intricate knot of emotions. He approached with purpose, so near that I could make out the delicate scar on his cheek, a remnant of a tale from a distant past. So near that the warmth of his body enveloped me. He kept his distance. I ponder over it, he recounted. Exceeding the limits, I understand. And then a tale unfolds, spontaneously, free from any facade. He shared a moment of emotional closeness. It lacked the grandeur of a film. There was only silence, devoid of swelling music or rain tapping against the windows. In the stillness, a sense of calm enveloped the surroundings. Exposed, engaged. He reached out in a tender gesture. His thumb lingered softly beneath my ear. His shared a quiet, meaningful connection that left my knees weak. It was a statement. It lacked the essence of an apology. The journey went on. The knife slipped from my grasp, landing with a clatter on the counter. Lost in the echoes of time, my hands found their way to his chest. Fingers curled tightly against the fabric of his shirt. A silent narrative unfolding in the quiet moments. His breath caught in his throat, only a little, and I experienced it on my tongue. The subtle dance of control waning, and so it came to a close. He drifted back, free from remorse, remaining calm, yet with moderation. He gazed at me, his eyes lingering as if searching for something hidden within the silence between us, embracing the journey without seeking conclusions, simply embracing the truth of what had transpired. I think it's time for me to take my leave. He spoke at last, softly spoken. I let him continue on his path. I was unable to do that. As he stepped out of the room, I remained in my spot, lost in thought. The memory of his kiss lingered on my skin like a tale waiting to be told. The kitchen remained just as it always was. The house stood firm, untouched by time. Yet, I was transformed from the woman who had occupied this room just the night before. I brushed my lips gently. They were engulfed in flames. As the night deepened, I found myself lying in bed, solitude enveloping me. The sheets are refreshing to the touch. The stillness expands. I considered whispering to myself to let it go, to allow it to flow by, to weave tales. Yet, I was aware that the act of pretending had come to an end. To ensure that memories linger on, I yearned for something greater. That night was one of those restless ones, where sleep eluded me completely. Not really. For hours, I remained motionless, observing the shadows dance across the ceiling, as if the very room were alive, inhaling and exhaling in a silent rhythm. My body felt a deep, resonant ache that transcended mere pain, yet an intense, vibrant yearning that gripped every fiber. More than mere sensation, indeed, that as well. Yet, amidst the chilling precision of being observed, seeking, in a manner that was entirely disconnected from obligation, ease, or the passage of time, I rose from my slumber before the first light of day. As I lay there, my husband slumbered peacefully next to me, his back turned to the wall. Just like every night, he inhaled deeply, calm and composed, unmoved by the quakes that had settled deep within me. I observed him for a brief moment, not with rage, not with disdain, yet there was an unusual, distant warmth to it. Unbeknownst to him, there were unseen currents stirring just below the surface. What he had welcomed into our lives with the faith of someone who had never been taught to seek out flaws. By mid-morning, I found myself weaving a narrative that it simply had to come to an end. that there simply couldn't be anything else. The second kiss, the one that left me quaking in the wake of his departure, marked a line we could never revisit. And then, just as I was gathering my strength, my husband made a suggestion that shook me to my core. "This weekend you ought to join him at the cabin." As he enjoyed his breakfast, he stole a glance at his phone between bites of toast, weaving a narrative of his morning routine. "Your familiarity with the place surpasses mine. It requires a thorough review prior to the arrival of winter." In that fleeting moment, my eyes closed and opened again. "What about the cabin?" "Absolutely." He gave a slight nod. "Why not set off early on Saturday? It could be quite the adventure. Feel free to stay the night if you need to. I've got the quarterly meeting coming up." And he mentioned he would attend regardless, but having you there could make things smoother. He intended it as a helpful gesture, a choice grounded in reality. We possessed the keys. I was familiar with the old heating system. I could guide him to the location of the fuse box, demonstrate how to coax the stubborn water heater back to life, reveal which drawer contained the matches, and uncover the hidden old flashlights. It's a mystery how I managed to keep my voice steady. "Absolutely," I replied. "Should it be of assistance?" He beamed with joy. A gentle kiss brushed against the crown of my head, the comforting, familiar presence of a partner who has ceased to inquire about his place in your mind. The journey to the cabin was filled with silence. Our words were few. Initially, that wasn't the case. The path meandered softly among the trees, with skeletal branches sketching patterns on the overcast sky. I gazed toward the horizon, my hands clasped firmly in my lap. He let the quiet linger, allowing it to speak for itself. And that only added to the troubles. He lingered in the silence, allowing the weight of unspoken words to hang in the air. Not from spite, but because he understood. He felt the truth of it deep within him. At one moment, he extended his hand towards the radio, yet chose not to switch it on. He let his fingers linger on the dial, as if waiting for a tale to unfold. Reflective, he finally said, without meeting my gaze, that he hadn't asked him to send you. "I understand. He has faith in you. I understand that as well." He paused, contemplating the moment. "Is that what he should do?" I glanced over at him then. Take a moment to observe closely. His jaw was firm, yet relaxed. His gaze met mine, unwavering and intense. In that moment, I paused before responding. "It's not about belief." Finally, I spoke up. "It's a tale of gravity." "What about gravity?" "There's an essence that lingers." Draw. Our words fell silent after that moment. It was only when we arrived at the cabin. The quaint two-room cottage, nestled at the forest's edge, its porch groaning with age and a chimney stained dark from the chill of last winter. It had been nearly 2 years since my last visit. The key twisted in the familiar direction. The door creaked open, as if it were hesitant to reveal what lay beyond, as the first footsteps echoed on the wooden floors. A fine layer of dust danced in the air, whispering tales of the past. We began our task in silence, each absorbed in our own thoughts. He took a moment to inspect the windows. As I struck the match, a flicker of flame danced to life in the stove, igniting the pilot light with a warm glow. We danced around one another like silent celestial bodies, mindful of the delicate space between us. Yet I sensed his presence. Each moment he moved past me. Each moment I caught the sound of his breath, or noticed the way he adjusted his sleeves, felt like a scene unfolding before me. Once, I draped a long cardigan over a soft cotton dress, creating a cozy and inviting look. Just a simple tale. Nothing crafted to incite. Yet that dress was a choice I made with intention. It embraced in all the perfect spots. It just happened, without any forethought, because I had to weave a narrative. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we gathered around the cozy stone hearth, igniting a warm fire that flickered and danced in the twilight. He uncorked a bottle of wine from the neglected cabinet and silently offered me a glass. We found ourselves on opposite sides of the room, the flames dancing gently in the space between us. He gazed into the flames, lost in thought, before finally breaking the silence. As a child, he reminisced, this place seemed vast, reminiscent of a grand castle. Once upon a time, I recalled, in the loft where you once rested, you would share how the trees whispered their secrets to you in the night. He offered a faint smile. I believe there's still a chance for me. As I savored my wine, warmth enveloped me, weaving a tale of comfort and indulgence. Outside, the wind had grown stronger, caressing the leaves and making them dance against the windows, as if they were whispering secrets. The cabin seemed to embrace its occupants, becoming cozier, as if it had transformed to accommodate just the two of them. "I'm not sure how to navigate this," he said abruptly. "Whatever this may be." As I gazed upon him, "There's no need for you to become someone else. That's the challenge," he remarked. "I aspire to become." He rose gradually, making his way across the room now, pausing right before me, maintaining a respectful distance, neither touching nor assuming. He asserted, "I'm not a child, and you are not an error in the grand narrative of life." I could have intervened. I could have taken a stand and walked away, or spoken with conviction and clarity. However, I chose not to. I gazed up at him, my breath quickening, allowing the moment to unfold on its own. As he bent closer, our lips met in a gentle embrace. It had a unique quality compared to the previous two experiences. Gradually, more profoundly. It's a statement, no response at all, simply a matter of time. He offered a warm, steady presence, a gentle touch that felt reassuring rather than controlling. As I stood there, I could sense the gentle arc of his hands and the comforting heat radiating from his chest, drawing me closer with a tender pull. I felt disconnected from the role of a wife. I felt like a storyteller, weaving my own narrative in a world that often misunderstood me. I sensed a deep yearning within me, as if I had been holding back my voice for an eternity. As we said our goodbyes, he leaned in, pressing his forehead gently against mine. He whispered, a tremor in his voice, "I'm afraid of what comes next." "Indeed," I replied. That night, we found ourselves apart, each lost in our own thoughts. That's not how it goes. We lay in our separate beds, the atmosphere charged with the echoes of the night's events. I found myself awake once more, observing the flickering shadows created by the dancing flames on the ceiling above. And in that illumination, a fresh understanding dawned upon me. This had evolved into something much deeper, once a threat, now a tale of resilience. It was a craving that had finally discovered its identity. The quiet in the car on the drive back had transformed into something more assured. It possessed shape, substance, an essence that lingered between us, like an uninvited guest we chose to ignore. The trees danced by in a blur outside the window. Yet my mind was lost in the memory of his hands on my waist, the gentle press of his forehead against mine, and the warmth that remained long after we had retreated to our own corners of the night. Silence enveloped us. It wasn't that there was a lack of things to express. Rather, we understood that speaking would only deepen the reality of the moment. As we approached the driveway, the sun began its descent, casting a warm glow as it slipped behind the horizon. The house lingered in its accustomed quiet, poised for our arrival, unconcerned with the burdens we carried within us. My husband's car had already arrived. He arrived before us, even though he insisted he had a late meeting. As we entered, the facade of everyday life reassembled itself effortlessly, like a scene from a carefully rehearsed play. Coats found their place, shoes were set aside, and courteous hello filled the air. What was the experience like? With one hand gripping his phone and the other fiddling with his glasses, he inquired of us. "All right," I responded initially, perhaps a bit too hastily. He cast a quick look my way before shifting his gaze to his son. "Is everything going smoothly up there?" "Indeed," he remarked, with an air of tranquility. "Just a light-hearted moment." In that moment, I sensed the crack in the atmosphere. Small, nearly undetectable, like a fissure in glass that only shows its true nature when illuminated just so. My husband seemed oblivious, or perhaps he simply decided to look the other way. His focus had once again wandered to an email. During dinner, the flavors of the food seemed to elude me. With a fluid motion, my hands danced through the tasks, slicing, savoring, raising the glass to my lips. Yet my thoughts wandered, ensnared in a recollection that clung stubbornly to my consciousness. His gaze flickered in the glow of the flames. His breath flowed like a gentle stream, warm and steady. The gentle quality of his voice as he admitted his fear. Once the dishes were cleaned, I stayed in the kitchen, my hands resting on the sink's edge, my gaze fixed on the vacant area beyond the window. The sky had turned dark, yet the glass mirrored the inside world. I beheld my reflection, ghostly, motionless, weary. There he was, lingering just past the threshold, observing quietly as I moved about. He remained silent. He remained still. Nor did I. On that particular evening, lace was absent from my attire. I chose not to don silk. As I settled into bed, the soft fabric of my well-loved cotton t-shirt and shorts embraced my bare skin, inviting me into a world of comfort and warmth. My hair is gathered neatly at the back. My body feels weary. My husband joined me later, entering with the subtle grace of someone who knows the rhythm of our lives well. He remained silent. He stayed distant, not reaching out to me. I was taken by surprise when he did. Yet I found myself awake long after he drifted into a deep slumber, my eyes wide in the darkness, pondering how much longer I could exist in this state, torn between the life I had carefully crafted and the one that was unfolding on its own, without my consent. The days that followed unfolded with a tension that lingered beneath the surface of everyday life. The three of us navigated our surroundings with grace, akin to performers in a delicate ballet. Silence spoke volumes, revealing truths that words could never capture. It caught my attention how he began to avoid my gaze, how he would exit spaces with an urgency that felt unspoken. He started to fade away in subtle, intentional manners, dining at earlier hours, taking solitary long walks, and shutting his door while he toiled. Initially, I convinced myself it was remorse, his method of establishing separation, a voluntary retreat. One afternoon, I stumbled upon his sketchbook, carelessly left open on the living room table. It wasn't a lack of attention. He always included it. The page it lay open to froze me in my tracks. It was an illustration of me, my expression frozen in a fleeting instant that felt both familiar and elusive. With eyes shut tight and head gently inclined, it seemed as though they were attuned to whispers of a world unseen by others. The lines whispered secrets, drawing you into their embrace. It lacked any allure or theatricality. It was simply a moment of existence, a woman being acknowledged. As my finger glided along the edge of the paper, I felt the contours of the pencil lines beneath my touch. It was as if gazing into a reflection of oneself. Only this version of me appeared gentler, more authentic, less guarded, as if he had witnessed something I hadn't revealed to anyone in years. I softly shut the book and returned it to its original spot. Under the cover of darkness, I rapped gently on his door. He opened it slowly, his oppression a mystery. Yet I caught a glimpse of what lay beneath. The glimmer of astonishment, of unease. I laid my eyes on the drawing and I spoke up. He remained silent, offering no explanation. "It feels like you're keeping your distance," I added. "I have to," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is the only path to an end." As I crossed the threshold, a world of possibilities unfolded before me. The room was shrouded in shadows, illuminated solely by the soft glow of the lamp perched on his desk. A cozy sweatshirt draped casually over the back of his chair, hinting at the stories of warmth and comfort it holds. Once upon a time, the bed lay in disarray, its sheets tangled and pillows askew, whispering tales of a restless night. On the floor, his phone vibrated quietly, a subtle reminder of the world outside. "I'm not requesting that you cease," I mentioned. He cast his gaze in my direction then. "It's a good idea to do so." Perched on the edge of the bed, I crossed my legs and rested my hands in my lap, ready to share a moment that would unfold like a tale waiting to be told. "Share with me the reasons." He gently shook his head, a silent narrative unfolding in his expression. "You have a partner for life. He is the man who raised me. We share the same space. That's a compelling reason." "That's a collection of narratives," I said. "There's no tale to tell here." He ran a hand through his hair, a tale of frustration brewing just beneath the surface. "Do you really believe I don't desire this? Do you really believe I don't relive every moment of it when I shut my eyes? I aspire to be the one who turns and leaves. For the two of us." I gazed at him intently. "What if I wish for you to stay close?" The quiet enveloped us once more, yet it carried a weight that was anything but ordinary. It pulsed with unspoken words, filled with the weight of everything we struggled to express. As I prepared to walk away, he extended his hand, not to hinder my departure, but simply to make contact. Our fingers lightly touched, a fleeting moment that felt like the beginning of a tale waiting to unfold, a fleeting touch, like a soft murmur in the air. It was a moment that took my breath away. "I'm not sure how much longer I can be here," he remarked. He shared a moment of emotional closeness, a fervent embrace filled with longing and intensity. In the absence of playfulness or delight, a quiet yearning emerged, creeping forth from the garden, the kitchen, and that initial brush of fingers. His form inched nearer to me. We didn't embrace, yet I sensed the heat radiating from his chest, the quickened rhythm of his breath. In the embrace of the evening, with the rich aroma of wine swirling around us, a sense of intimacy enveloped the moment. Every moment was a tale waiting to unfold. All that unfolded was genuine. As the eerie sound echoed through the house, we instinctively drifted apart, each of us drawn to the mystery lurking within. A journey begins and ended with a single step. Our eyes met, and a silent exchange unfolded between us. His thumb lingered on my hip, a gentle reminder of the moment we shared. My heart raced with anticipation. I dashed inside, my heart racing as though I were escaping a blazing inferno. I entered the room, shut the door behind me, and settled onto the bed, my legs quaking beneath me. I held back my tears. I felt no remorse. A wave of longing washed over me, accompanied by the harsh reality that what I had experienced was far from a mere illusion. It truly happened. Unchangeable. Moments later, my husband made his way up. He beamed with joy. His expression radiated joy. He shared with me his fondness for that place. He mentioned that we ought to visit more frequently. I replied softly, feigning weariness. I settled beside him, yet slumber eluded me. At dawn, he discovered me wide awake, my body ablaze, a deep emotional yearning. Each time I shut my eyes, memories flooded back. The kiss, the flavor, the power, the quiver in his hands. And something within me was shattering, not from anguish, but from an undeniable truth. The following morning, I took my time getting dressed. I selected a flowing blouse paired with an elegant long skirt. I found myself pausing longer than usual in front of the mirror. I adorned myself with the fragrance behind my ears. With a golden tweezer in hand, I gathered my hair, weaving a moment of elegance into my routine. Not meant for him, not for my partner. For me, there are tales waiting to be shared, because my body had transformed into something that was no longer simply concealed. It was a vibrant entity, full of energy and rhythm. Our morning meal unfolded quietly, each moment steeped in unspoken tales. He hardly stirred the pot. His eyes avoided mine. Yet I sensed the resonance of our shared experience lingering within him. My husband shared a tale of a path he yearned to wander, one that led to a concealed stream. He suggested joining him on the journey. We embraced the opportunity, as though it never happened. As I strolled along, the scenery unfolded like a tale from another world. Once upon a time, there were magnificent trees that stood tall and proud, each with its own tale to tell. Their branches reached out like arms, inviting all to listen to the whispers of the wind and the secrets of the earth. Each leaf danced in the sunlight, sharing stories of seasons past and the creatures that called them home. In their shadows, countless adventures unfolded, waiting to be discovered by those who dared to wander beneath their boughs. Once upon a time, there were stones, creatures of the earth, buzzing and crawling, each with a tale to tell. Whispers of the wind. My husband was forging ahead, brimming with enthusiasm. We lingered, gradually being left behind. The way ahead was slim and winding. In a fleeting moment, his hand brushed against my back. It was a fleeting motion, reminiscent of clearing away an obstruction. But my body ignited, as though it had been stirred with emotion. That night, the table remained empty, untouched by the warmth of a meal. My husband retired for the night, weary from the day's adventures. I feigned engrossment in a book. He lingered on the porch, enveloped in quietude. Under the cover of night, when the world was hushed and dreams danced in slumber, I ventured out once more. I strolled to the boundary of the garden. There he was, perched on the railing, a cigarette in hand, lost in thought. Silence enveloped us. I made my way closer. We lingered in quietude, gazing into the void. In that moment, the lips never met. Silence enveloped the moment. It's the mere existence of another that reveals the unspoken truths. In that quiet moment, I realized that there was no going back. What was set in motion could not be reversed. It was more than a mere error. It was a yearning, a connection, a gaping wound that refused to heal. The journey back was filled with quiet reflections. Certainly not in looks, of course. Along the journey, there were light-hearted exchanges that filled the air. Brief observations about the weather and the traffic. My husband shared a few delightful jokes, and I couldn't help but respond with a spontaneous smile. Yet beneath it all, in that unseen realm where unspoken truths reside, the quiet was absolute. He, the son, remained mostly silent as well. In the back seat, he sat immersed in his own world, headphones snugly in place, his gaze locked onto the ever-changing scenery outside the window. Occasionally, I caught glimpses of him in the rearview mirror. I found myself wandering without a particular destination in mind. I simply wanted to ensure he was still present. Upon our arrival, the world seemed to find its rhythm once more. In the depths of the closet, the suitcases await, each one holding whispers of journeys past and adventures yet to come. Once upon a time, there were pristine shoes waiting at the entrance, ready to embark on new adventures. The house returned to its familiar form, as though the journey had merely been a fleeting interlude, a harmless adventure. My husband retreated to his studio right away, claiming he needed to prepare for the morning with some mail. In a moment of respite, I decided to indulge in a refreshing shower. The warm cascade enveloping my skin brought a fleeting sense of comfort. Yet, it serves as a gentle nudge. My body was still aflame, not from the warmth around me, but from the unspoken truths that lingered in the air. For the next few hours, he and I danced around each other, carefully sidestepping any chance of crossing paths. It's unclear whether it was a mutual choice or simply a spontaneous response to fear. Yet, a part of me longed for him with an aching intensity. It was more than mere physical attraction. It was a deeper yearning that stirred the soul. It was a raw and elemental experience. I sought reassurance that the emotions we experienced within those walls were not merely the result of solitude, of wine, or of the darkness surrounding us. I had to reassure myself that the feeling was still there. That same afternoon, as I was sorting through some papers in the living room, I caught a glimpse of him passing through the corridor, his gaze averted from mine. With a posture that spoke of confidence and a stride that resonated with purpose. Yet, there was an intriguing quality to his movements that caught my attention, filled with anticipation. Far away, me aproximé a la ventana, buscando una forma de ocupar mis manos en algo significativo. Our interaction carried an unspoken intimacy. "This can't go on any longer," he remarked, taking a step back. "This isn't the way." I took a deep breath, feeling the dryness in my throat. I understand. I'm not requesting that you make a selection. Yet, you require my presence to do so. He gave a slight nod, as if acknowledging an unspoken narrative. We lingered in quietude, lost in our thoughts for what felt like an eternity. He remained seated in the chair. I lingered on the bed. The rain gently caressed the outside world, its soft patter becoming a quiet murmur against the window pane. Once the storm had passed, he quietly exited the room, leaving behind any further inquiries, and I set him free. As we settled into the car, an unusual weight filled the air, more profound than any silence we had experienced before. Yet, on this occasion, it was not about evasion. It was a time of reflection, for we had ventured beyond the threshold of no return. It was an unspoken understanding between us. The moment we departed from that motel, my faith in clean lines vanished. The concept of time had faded away, leaving only the present moment. There are no secure classifications available for organizing items. The lines between right and wrong had transformed into hazy images beneath the surface. Once we stepped over that threshold, truly stepped over it, we transformed into something that defied all conventional labels. And yet the world around us appeared oblivious. The city stood strong. The heavens remained unbroken. Upon returning home, the street appeared unchanged, as if time had stood still. The aroma in the kitchen lingered, familiar and comforting. The neighbor's dog continued to bark at the same intervals, as if time itself had stood still. It felt like I had opened the chapters of my existence and taken a moment to wander beyond their pages. He remained silent with me for the entire day. Silence prevails. He ascended the stairs with his duffel bag in tow, each deliberate step echoing the rhythm I had come to know by heart. I stood in the driveway, feigning interest in my phone as I observed the scene unfold. I'm not sure what held me back. Perhaps yearning for a fleeting look or a moment of stillness. Something to recognize the unfolding tale that had just transpired between us. Yet he stepped inside, his gaze fixed ahead, never glancing back. That evening, my husband observed that I was more subdued than normal. "Are you okay?" As he carefully scooped rice onto his plate, a tale of flavors began to unfold. "Your complexion seems quite light. Feeling a bit worn out?" I shared. With a slight nod, he continued on his way. That was his cadence. Recognize, embrace. When I mentioned my weariness, I spoke honestly. He chose not to insist. He always held back. Later, as we stood side by side brushing our teeth, he shared with me the tale of a promotion at work that left him feeling uncertain about what he truly desired. He inquired whether I believed a journey next month would be a good idea, perhaps in a cozy, sunlit place. It seems like it's time for us to embark on a new adventure beyond these walls. He spoke, water swirling in his mouth, a shift in rhythm. I gave a slight nod. I nodded in understanding. Yet, my thoughts wandered to distant realms, revisiting the outline of his son's smile, the arch of his back as he moved further from my sight. My body ached with a lingering discomfort, not with remorse, but with the resonance of recollection. The following morning, he had vanished before my eyes opened. A note resting on the kitchen counter revealed that he had departed for a weekend conference in Chicago. Departed at dawn. I will return on Sunday night. I lingered over the paper in my hands, savoring the moment more than I needed to. The script was reminiscent of something cherished, yet the message seemed to belong to another realm. He left without a word of farewell. He never leaned in for a kiss. He placed his faith in me. As the clock struck noon, a hush fell over the house, enveloping it in a serene stillness. I navigated the scene with caution, feeling a sense of anticipation in the air, though I couldn't quite grasp what it was that I awaited. I brewed a warm cup of tea. I carefully arranged the freshly washed clothes, each piece telling its own tale of warmth and comfort. I waited, straining to hear the sound of footsteps that never arrived. At around 3, I stood outside his door, anticipation swirling in the air. The doors were shut tight. After a brief pause, I rapped softly on the door. No response. I decided to go ahead and open it. He was absent from the scene. In his room, everything had its place. The desk stood orderly, and the clothes were meticulously folded, resting in a tidy stack beside his bag. Yet, an element felt absent. Not in a tangible way. Everything remained intact. Yet, the atmosphere had transformed, as if he had departed in some manner, retreated from the home, from myself, from the fragile connection we had allowed to flourish too quickly. I found myself perched on the edge of his bed, lost in the moment, unaware of how much time had slipped by. The light danced across the carpet. Particles danced through the atmosphere. I reclined and allowed my head to rest against the wall, my eyes gently shut. He never came back that night, neither the following. He retreated to his room whenever he was home, appearing only when absolutely needed. As he walked by in the hallway, his gaze drifted past me, as if I were merely a piece of furniture in the room. One might expect a surge of anger, a wave of shame, or perhaps a cloud of confusion to wash over me. Instead, I felt like a character left behind in a tale untold. Not in a sentimental way, not in a way that implies ownership, yet in the unrefined, bewildering manner of an individual who had been laid bare and then gently sealed once more, akin to a novel placed back on the shelf before the final chapter was reached. On a night 3 days after the motel, I found myself in the kitchen, waiting in the darkness. I was left in the dark. I wasn't in the kitchen whipping up anything. I had no appetite. There I was, standing barefoot, feeling the cool tiles against my arches, gazing out the window above the sink. At long last, he stepped through the door, seeking a refreshing drink of water. He was caught off guard by my presence. In that moment, time stood still for us. With a gentle pull, he swung open the cabinet door, his hand reaching for a glass. He positioned it beneath the tap, watching as the water cascaded in, filling it to the brim. His hand quivered just a bit, only a flicker. I moved in a little nearer. There isn't a lot to share, only a tiny leap forward. It seems like you're keeping your distance, I mentioned. He simply acknowledged it. I hope this doesn't turn into something unpleasant, I added. It already is, he said, as our eyes finally connected. Can you not see that? His voice carried a soft, fragile quality. His face bore the weight of fatigue, not due to sleepless nights, but from the weight of too many burdens. This wasn't what I wanted, I murmured softly. I wasn't on a quest for it. I understand. Yet it remains present. And it's far too significant for us to act as if it doesn't exist. He placed the glass on the table with a force that suggested a deeper narrative behind his actions. I'm striving to make the right choices, he continued. I'm taking a step back, allowing us both some space to reflect. So, "How's that going for you?" He chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth and filled with emptiness. No, once more, we found ourselves enveloped in quietude. Behind us, the fridge let out a soft hum. In the quiet of the evening, a solitary bark echoed through the air, only to fade into silence moments later. "I lack the strength to act as if this never occurred," I said. "And I lack the strength to bear it." He exited the kitchen, leaving the glass of water behind, untouched and waiting for a reply that never came. That evening, I slipped into a nightgown that would remain unseen by him, took my time brushing my hair, and settled into a bed that felt foreign to me now. As I gazed at the shadows dancing on the ceiling, a revelation emerged within me. Something I had kept hidden until now. This had transcended mere longing. It was a tale woven from the threads of absence. It's fascinating how one individual can enter your world and, without any effort, reveal the depths of what you've hidden away just to get by. And then, it leaves you pondering if unearthing any of it holds any value at all. As the leaves began their graceful descent, my husband proposed the idea of a picnic. Perhaps that was his method of making an effort. Extending a hand through the widening gap that separates us, offering a touch of warmth, a whisper of the past. In the early days of our marriage, we would embark on drives together, winding paths through the hills, halting at every breathtaking vista that beckoned us to linger a little longer. In the early days of our marriage, we intentionally took a wrong turn, finding ourselves at a quaint roadside diner. It had plastic booths and served the most delightful cherry pie we had ever tasted. He yearned to capture that essence once more. A straightforward idea. A day filled with family moments. "I thought we could all go," he said at breakfast, as he poured coffee into my cup, his voice carrying the weight of a tale waiting to unfold. "It's us three, together in this moment. There's been a palpable tension in the air recently. Perhaps it could be beneficial to balance everything out." I gazed at the swirling cream in the cup, contemplating my response. Very well. I found myself pondering whether my words emerged from a place of remorse or a thirst for understanding. Perhaps a combination of the two. A curiosity stirred within me, eager to witness his actions in our presence now. In the open, under the sun, within the communal setting of a vehicle and a picnic spread, I felt compelled to explore the contours of the invisible walls he had constructed in the quiet that followed our time at the motel. We prepared delightful sandwiches, each one a little tale waiting to be shared. Once upon a time in the vibrant orchard, there were colorful fruits hanging from the branches, each with its own tale to tell. A cozy covering. My husband was adamant about bringing along the old thermos that had a knack for leaking and a deck of cards that had yet to see the light of day. It had a charming quality, somewhat endearing. I observed him as he hummed while packing the cooler, pondering whether he had always been so effortlessly satisfied or if I had just begun to overlook it. Just an hour's journey from the bustling city, the park awaited, a hidden gem ready to share its tales. Serene, natural, with expansive meadows and pathways weaving through dense clusters of timber. The place had a sense of spaciousness. Scattered across the grass, a handful of families spread their blankets, filling the air with the joyful sounds of children's laughter. Yet, we discovered a hidden nook nestled beside a row of trees. Shade enveloped us, creating a scene reminiscent of a theatrical performance. He unfolded the blanket with care, I revealed the contents of the food package. The son, quietly observing, strolled a little further, feigning interest in a group of stones at the path's edge. My husband unveiled the thermos. He chuckled, saying there are still leaks. One would imagine that it would stick in my mind. I offered a smile, though it felt fragile. The meal unfolded amidst fragmented exchanges. He inquired about the cabin. Once upon a time, there was a water heater. We pondered if the trees could use a little trimming before the winter chill sets in. I responded with short sentences, my gaze fixed on the man across the clearing, who was absorbed in his sketching, sitting with his feet tucked beneath him like a child lost in imagination. As my husband rose to head to the restroom, a distant building down the hill, unseen from our spot, the atmosphere shifted in an instant. Silence enveloped us, yet an unspoken understanding lingered in the air. He shut his notebook, his gaze fixed downward. I rose and swept away the crumbs from my skirt, making my way to the border of the trees. He trailed behind. We found ourselves by a humble wooden fence, our backs turned to the open space ahead. From this spot, the gentle whisper of the breeze rustled through the parched leaves, accompanied by the faint murmur of unfamiliar voices in the distance. It was a haven for expressing the unspoken. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice carrying a weight that felt heavier than before. "What's the purpose?" "To create a challenge by vanishing." "You didn't complicate things." I shared. "You brought it to life." He pivoted to meet my gaze. His expression was open, a stark contrast to how it had once been. No tales were spun in this place. There are no boundaries, just fatigue and a lingering feeling, a certain kind of longing. Since that night, clarity has eluded him, he confessed. I had the desire, yet it eluded me. I had hoped you wouldn't. I understand. He moved in a bit nearer. I remained still. At times, he mentioned, I find myself pondering whether you have always been this vibrant, and I simply overlooked it. No, I responded firmly. I concealed it once upon a time. You've unearthed it once more. In that moment, we were enveloped in quietude, the universe shrinking to the intimate distance that separated us. The breeze danced around me, sending strands of hair fluttering against my skin, and he gently swept them away, tucking them behind my ear with a tender touch. His fingers grazed my skin, and in that fleeting moment, time stood still. Imagine if you had the chance to begin anew, he remarked. Truly begin. Would you care to share? It struck me with the force of a heavy rock. The inquiry I had yet to permit myself to explore, the question that left me speechless, not without tearing apart the very essence of all I had created, not without unraveling the fabric of a life woven together with vows, identities, shared financial burdens, festive greetings, and countless evenings spent in the comfort of each other's presence, even in quietude. I averted my gaze as I replied, I'm uncertain. He nodded slowly, as if he had anticipated that all along. Perhaps it was even more appealing than a falsehood. He reflected on it, he said. Beginning anew, departing, sharing moments with someone who truly understands me. I see you, I whispered, my voice trembling with emotion. I understand. That's the challenge we face. We remained in that moment until the sound of footsteps echoed back to us. My husband's voice drifted up from the path, calling my name in that familiar tone he always used when we were out in public, where life felt uncomplicated. I took a moment to gather myself, straightened my blouse, and ran my hands over my skirt to ensure everything was just right. He lingered for a brief moment, then made his way back to the blanket alone. My husband inquired whether we had spotted any deer. I declined. As I journeyed home, I found myself nestled in the back seat, observing the world outside. Allow them to share tales of road conditions and tire pressure, weaving in how the leaves will be at their most vibrant next weekend. I gazed through the window, observing the trees merge into a seamless tapestry, much like the swirling ideas in my mind. Upon arriving home, I hurried to the bathroom, secured the door and faced the mirror. I appeared as I truly am. Identical shade of lipstick, identical earrings. Yet, I sensed an unfamiliarity within myself. For the response I had shared with him in the woods was not the whole story. In that fleeting instant, as he gently tucked my hair behind my ear, a revelation washed over me. Indeed, if given the chance to begin anew, I certainly would. And now I found myself at a loss for how to navigate that reality. Time, I had come to realize, flows in a rhythm all its own. There are days that linger, heavy and slow, while others vanish in an instant, leaving you grasping at memories that fade away too quickly. Ever since that picnic, the cadence of life felt unreliable to me. My perception of time splintered, much like all else around me. Once upon a time, and then came the transformation. Following the inquiry, following my deception. If given the chance to begin anew, would you take it? I'm uncertain. Yet, I did. Absolutely, I did. And that awareness ate away at me like moths at fabric, softly yet persistently, unraveling all that I had woven together through years of routine and perseverance. Once more, he fell silent with me, not in harshness, not in frustration, only emptiness. He fell back into the habit of shunning communal areas, quietly exiting rooms as I walked in, casting his gaze downward at the echo of my steps, abandoning his coffee cup in the sink without uttering a single word. It was a void deeper than silence itself. It was a departure, and this time it carried a sense of conclusion. I attempted to convince myself that it was the right choice. Those boundaries had been breached. Every journey has its conclusion. And perhaps this was that place. Perhaps he had come to understand something that eluded me, that no positive outcome would arise from it. What we accomplished was merely to create an emptiness within something that had previously been complete. Yet that understanding did little to ease the pain. And then one evening, my husband surprised me with an unexpected gesture. He filled the glass with rich red wine, the liquid swirling like a tale waiting to be told. Prepare the table for a gathering. We dusted off the old record player, a relic of our past, and brought it back to life after months of silence. The one we acquired during our second year of marriage, when we still held the belief that a mutual love for music could weave our lives together in harmony. He prepared a meal, weaving together flavors and aromas that danced in the air. It was simple, yet it carried a scent that wrapped around you like a comforting memory. Once upon a time, there was a delightful dish known as rosemary chicken. Once upon a time, there were fluffy clouds of mashed potatoes, each one a delightful tale waiting to be savored. Once upon a time, there were vibrant carrots, kissed by the sun and nurtured by the earth. They were transformed by the warmth of the oven, their natural sweetness brought to life, creating a delightful tale of flavour and warmth. Once upon a time, we would gather in the kitchen on Sunday nights, crafting a meal together, before the weight of work and exhaustion settled in. I gazed at the table while he ignited a tiny candle and softened the kitchen lights. The gesture was so deeply heartfelt, it caused a tightness in my chest. "What's going on here?" I inquired. "I've been reflecting." He gestured towards the chair, inviting me to take a seat. Somewhere along the way, we found ourselves existing in parallel, rather than truly sharing our lives together. "And I long for your presence." The words resonated with me more deeply than I expected. I settled into my seat. "It seems like there's a peculiar atmosphere surrounding us these days." He went on, "There are times when I find it challenging to understand you like I once did. Perhaps I could put in a bit more effort. Yet, I have the desire to." As I gazed down at my plate, a world of thoughts began to unfold. Then did gaze upon him. He was making an effort, falling short, not sharing a narrative, searching for something once held dear that has now eluded us both. In that fleeting instant, a thought crossed my mind. Was it possible that time had slipped away from me? We shared tales over dinner about the ordinary moments that weave together the fabric of our lives. Once upon a time, there was a cat belonging to the neighbor. A tale he encountered regarding artificial intelligence. Once, a colleague shared a hilarious remark during our workday. Yet, it held a certain warmth within. The type of comfort that slips your mind until it's graciously returned to you. Once the plates were cleared away, he chose not to retreat to his office, as was his usual habit. He filled another glass of wine and settled beside me on the couch, as we began to sift through a photo album that had gathered dust for years. Let me share the tale of our wedding, journeys to new places. A hazy snapshot of myself wrapped in a hotel bathrobe, with a chuckle, clutching a menu for room service. He gazed at it, a smile spreading across his face. "Your beauty has always shone through," he recounted. I chose to remain silent. I found myself lost in the memories of how I had felt that day. Unbound, free from weight, a little tipsy, confident in my identity. As we settled into bed, his hand brushed gently against my shoulder. There was no immediate need, or challenging. "I have a question to share." Inquiries whispered through touch. I faced him, and after what felt like an eternity, we finally shared an intimate moment. It had a gentle touch, known, soft and tender, as if woven from the threads of shared memories and deep connections. Every action unfolds with certainty, every sound recognized. He touched me as if he were familiar with the guidelines, not as if he were attempting to change them, and for a fleeting instant, I allowed myself to truly experience the moment. I allowed myself to react, not because I have to, not from a sense of remorse, yet in appreciation for the reminder that I realized I could still feel connected to him. Yet it felt different. I stood firm. My breath flowed steadily. My thoughts remained full. I experienced it all. Yet none of it resonates profoundly. In the stillness that followed, we found ourselves enveloped in a serene calm. He drifted off into a peaceful slumber in no time. His hand lay gently on my hip. I gazed up at the ceiling, lost in thought, not with regret, but with a clear vision. It wasn't that my feelings for him were absent. I shared my experiences, in a manner that was serene and grounded, much like ancient trees or worn-out novels. Yet, I began to understand that affection alone didn't always suffice, not when it ceased to touch the hidden corners of you that continued to flourish in silence. The following morning, I discovered a note resting on the kitchen counter, penned in a handwriting that was unfamiliar to me, not belonging to my husband. It came from him, only a handful of words. I have something to share with you. Kindly, this evening. Untitled. There is no designated room number, not enough time. Yet I was aware of his whereabouts. As the stillness enveloped the house that evening, I slipped away without a word to my husband. I drove in silence. The stillness within the car resonated more than I could endure. There he was, on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket that draped over his lap. A notebook lies open, waiting for tales to be woven within its pages. As I stepped outside, his gaze met mine. I was about to walk away, he remarked. I understand. Yet I found myself unable to do so. In the stillness of the night, we lingered in silence, frozen in place, as the shadows enveloped us. I wondered if keeping my distance would help it fade away. He went on. If we simply ceased to nourish it, it would eventually perish. So what happens next? It simply did not happen. I settled next to him, feeling the chill creep into my knees. I'm feeling lost and uncertain about my next steps, I confessed. He faced me, his gaze weighted with untold tales. Let's take a moment to pause and reflect. Allowing the answers to unfold in their own time, I gave a slight nod. And so we did. We gathered around, ready to share our tales, next to each other, untouched. Being genuine, inhale deeply, feeling the gravity of our shared experiences, the moments we let slip by, and the unspoken possibilities lingering in the silence that surrounds us. At times, I ponder that the most challenging aspect isn't the remorse, nor is it the anxiety. It's all about the decision, the instant when all that you've kept in limbo calls for a response, when the moment between breaths stretches into eternity, and remaining still transforms from a sanctuary into a choice of its own. That moment had been weaving its way around me for days. Following that evening on the porch, the world took on a new clarity. Each whisper, every little action within the home, each look shared between us. Each morning, I rose with the hope of a change unfolding. A clash of wills, a query, a farewell. Yet, silence lingered. Life marched on with its peculiar, unwavering commitment to a beat. My husband resumed his familiar routine, weaving through meetings and casual conversations, jotting down grocery lists and tackling car repairs. He appeared to carry a certain buoyancy after the evening we shared. It was as though a part of him felt we had crossed a threshold, as if closeness, no matter how delicate, could serve as a balm for the fissures he had only just started to recognize. He started to weave new narratives once more. A weekend adventure in Vermont. Once upon a time, a delightful gathering unfolded at the country club, where the rich aromas and flavors of fine wines danced in the air. We could use a fresh perspective, he remarked, passing me a brochure adorned with autumn leaves and cheerful couples. Let's begin anew. The words lingered in the air, shrouded in an ethereal haze. Compassionate, filled with optimism, oblivious to the tempest lurking just beyond the threshold. I wanted to share my tale with him. Each day, I crafted narratives of reality. This is how I would express it. Once upon a time. What words might I choose? Yet every rendition crumbled beneath the burden of his visage in my thoughts. The astonishment, the bewilderment. Once upon a time there was a moment of treachery. And always beneath it, the understanding that my actions hadn't stemmed from a void of affection, but from discovering something I hadn't realized I was yearning for until it reached out to me. Alongside him, once upon a time, there was a radiant orb in the sky, casting its warm glow upon the world below. It was more than mere longing. It was the sensation of being understood, of being recognized not by the shadows of my past, but by the essence of who I continue to be, hidden under the soft embrace of familiarity, the daily patterns, and the gradual fading of closeness. It had been a while since we exchanged words as after that evening on the porch. Not in a way that truly resonated. The quiet that lingered between us held a warmth of its own. There was an electric atmosphere. It felt as if the atmosphere itself was aware that we were teetering on the brink of an unchangeable fate. On a particular afternoon, I stepped out of the house. No note. There's no justification. At first, I set out on the road without a specific place in mind, only the urge to journey forth, to break free from the confines of a home that had lost its sense of belonging. As the season shifted, the leaves began to change their colors, vivid flashes of crimson and amber dancing among the branches like flames. As I found myself in a nearby town, a place I hadn't visited in ages, I parked my car in front of a quaint little cafe nestled away on a side street. I chose to stay outside. I settled onto the bench facing the windows, cocooned in my coat, and lingered in anticipation. There was a lingering uncertainty about whether he would show up. Yet, a part of me held on to the hope that he would. Time slipped away, marking the passage of an hour. And then there was one more. As the day unfolded, the sky started to transform. Gentle hues of soft pink blend seamlessly with the profound blue of twilight. As dusk settled in, the streetlights began to glow, casting a warm light on the quiet streets. As the world moved around me, I remained unseen, a silent observer in the midst of life's unfolding tale. And then he emerged from the shadows. His expression remained unchanged. He approached me with deliberate, measured strides, as if he had always understood that this was the destination of the narrative. He settled next to me in silence, the air thick with unspoken tales. We sat side by side, observing the world unfold before us. The cars gliding by, the lights flickering in a rhythmic dance, and the warm steam billowing from a vent nearby. At last, he found his voice. "Did you go?" In that moment, I found myself yearning for a breath of fresh air. Was it beneficial? Absolutely not. A moment of stillness. "Will you be returning?" he inquired, his voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated before responding. I faced him, examining the contours of his face, the tightness in his jaw, the gentleness in his eyes, the way he felt both known and unknown, a chapter of my life that had started in one way and concluded in another. "I'm not sure how to return," I replied. He remained distant, leaving the quiet unbroken between us. He simply gave a nod. "I'm done with hiding," he finally admitted. As I gazed at my hands, a world of memories unfolded before me. "Then we shall confront it head on." What is the significance of that? It signifies that all tale eventually come to light. He paused, lost in thought. Once upon a time, I never wished to be the cause of something falling apart. I insisted that you weren't. You were merely a reflection. As dawn broke, I found myself awake before the sun fully rose. As my husband stood in the shower, a gentle hum escaped his lips, filling the air with a soothing melody. As I brewed my coffee, I found myself at the kitchen window, observing how the sunlight unfurled across the lawn, akin to fingers extending into the promise of a new day. I set a neatly folded note next to his mug. No exaggeration. No pages of explanation. Only the facts, calm and straightforward. When he finally made his way down the stairs, I had already vanished. Once more, I found myself behind the wheel, steering into the unknown without a destination in mind. Not to flee, but to begin anew. Uncertainty loomed ahead, shrouded in mystery. There's no flawless conclusion, just the winding journey ahead, and the realization that after so long, I was finally stepping into my own light, rather than fading into someone else's vision of who I should be. As the afternoon sun began to dip, I found myself settling into a quaint little room on the outskirts of town. A fleeting realm, only mine. At this moment, I settled onto the bed, observing as the sky transformed into a deep shade of night. Devices muted at my side. Uncertainty loomed over the next chapter, leaving me in suspense. Yet I was certain that I would no longer deceive myself, and that at last was the essence of liberation.